When most of us imagine a cave, we picture massive, echoing chambers and sweeping underground rivers. But for experienced cavers, the reality is often quite different. They navigate what's known as a squeeze, a twisting, jagged limestone passage that is frequently narrower than a human torso. The most pressing danger down here rarely comes from a sudden ceiling collapse or a flash flood. Instead, the true threat is absolute stillness. The rock does not yield, meaning the human skeleton and muscles must contort and conform to the cave's exact geometry. This diagram shows a top-down view of a human torso inside one of these rigid tunnels. To make forward progress, a caver has to exhale fully, shrinking their chest cavity to slide forward an inch or two. But the moment they inhale, the ribs expand outward. They wedge tightly against the unyielding stone, trapping themselves with their own breath. Today, we are looking at two separate incidents where this biology collided with geology. One involves a group of teenage boys exploring a labyrinth in Florida, and the other centers on a 63-year-old caving veteran deep in the Tennessee woods. Both found themselves trapped by entirely different physical forces. The physics of a cave act as the ultimate equalizer. Whether you are an amateur running on pure adrenaline or an expert with decades of careful preparation, the Earth strips all of that away the moment you run out of space. On December 27, 2003, the environment above the Boy Scout cave in Florida seemed entirely forgiving. A group of teens set out for an afternoon of exploration on a mild winter day, walking through a quiet, sunlit pine forest. But about an hour underground, 15-year-old Michael Sharrow and 16-year-old Jamaivic Henderson encountered a natural bottleneck known as the hairpin curve. It's a horizontal slit in the limestone that forces anyone attempting to pass to bend their body at a severe angle just to inch forward. Henderson twisted his body to navigate a sharp 180-degree bend, but quickly found himself entirely immobilized. He couldn't push forward and he couldn't pull back. Michael, trying to pull his friend free, crawled into the cramped space directly behind him, effectively trapping himself in the same narrow corridor. Back near the entrance, a counselor had built a small fire to stay warm. Word of the fire reached the other boys in the cave, and panic set in as they falsely believed the flames were consuming all their oxygen. While their fear of toxic air was completely psychological, the physical danger was real. The tight rock was restricting their lungs, causing a slow, mechanical asphyxiation, where the body simply lacks the room to draw a full breath. This animation illustrates the thermal exchange happening in that tight space. Even though the cave air was a stable 72 degrees Fahrenheit, the solid limestone acts as a massive heat sink. Because their bodies were pressed tightly against the rock, the cold stone steadily absorbs their body heat. This constant, accelerated heat loss rapidly drains the body's core temperature. Without the space to move and generate friction, their muscles weakened and eventually failed. Exhausted and freezing, Michael lost consciousness, slumping against the narrow walls. This is what makes a prolonged squeeze so lethal. The physical geometry of the cave stops your forward momentum, but the thermodynamics of the rock silently drain your life away. A few years earlier, in February 1998, a very different kind of trap caught a veteran caver. Deep in the frigid, snow-covered Tennessee woods, 63-year-old Alan England and his team prepared to descend into a newly discovered system called Weatherly Well. The entrance presented an immediate challenge. It was a vertical limestone slot measuring just 9 inches wide, a damp, claustrophobic fissure plunging straight down into the earth. England, secured by a handline, slid into the opening. During the descent, gravity acted as a deceptive ally. The downward pull easily compressed his ribs, allowing him to slide smoothly past the narrowest bottleneck of the rock with almost no exertion. Reaching the chamber below, his clothes now completely soaked from the wet stone, England assessed the path ahead. Recognizing the risks of going deeper without a partner, he decided to turn back. But as he looked up at the 9-inch gap he had just fallen through, he realized that effortless descent had armed a lethal trap for his return trip. This diagram breaks down the physical forces of a vertical ascent. Gravity is now fighting him, pulling his entire body weight downward. Meanwhile, his soaked clothing presses against the rough limestone, drastically increasing the friction locking him against the stone. Every grueling upward push burned immense energy, but the moment his cold, exhausted muscles faltered, he would slip backward, wedging his body even tighter into the narrowest part of the rock. He was stuck in a vicious exhaustion cycle. The terror of a vertical squeeze is this ratchet mechanism. Forward progress relies on gravity and feels completely natural, but moving backward is mathematically denied by friction. When a caver gets trapped in a squeeze, extraction becomes a massive logistical nightmare. Standard emergency tools like heavy machinery and helicopters are entirely useless against miles of impenetrable bedrock. In Florida, rescuing Michael and Henderson required a slow, agonizing effort. The first responders had to wedge their own bodies into the tight corridors, working for hours with small hand chisels. They carefully fractured the unforgiving limestone piece by piece, terrified that one wrong strike could cause a collapse. Over in Tennessee, Alan England's rescue demanded a highly technical approach. The extraction team built a complex system of pulleys and hauling devices inside a cramped chamber, generating enough mechanical advantage to finally overpower the immense friction locking him in place. Both rescue operations eventually succeeded, but they exacted a severe physical toll. After hours pinned against stone, all 3 cavers were extracted, battered, and suffering from extreme hypothermia. Reaching the surface is only half the battle. The moment they emerged, a new ticking clock began. Emergency medical teams had to work immediately to stabilize their rapidly dropping core temperatures and reverse the systemic damage caused by the prolonged heat loss. The ultimate threat of a cave is rarely a violent collapse or a rushing flood. It is the unyielding patience of the rock, simply waiting for the human body to exhaust its energy, lose its heat, and become just another part of the earth.